Hey everyone, it's me, Christine, of Flourish in the Foreign, the platform and podcast that celebrates, elevates, and affirms the voices and stories of Black people, Black women living and thriving abroad, while also exploring living abroad as a pathway to wellness. Hello. I wanted to jump on here really spontaneously because today is Juneteenth in the United States. It has just been made a federal holiday. If you do not know the history of Juneteenth, please look it up. But in a nutshell, some of you may have known, United States, there were enslaved peoples. These enslaved peoples were quote unquote emancipated, but the news of this emancipation did not reach Texas, Galveston, until like 2 years later. Which is so much to unpack. I mean, this is a talk for another day. And so today we celebrate those enslaved peoples getting that news that they were free. I want to jump on here because I wanted to explore living abroad as liberation for Black people, Black women, Black American women. And it's something that I've seen in some Facebook groups that people have talked about. And I just wanted to throw in some of my thoughts about that. As you guys know, if you've been tuning into the podcast, if you have been watching these lives, I am about living abroad as a pathway to wellness, yes, but it's not about transporting yourself geographically and your life gets better. It really is about being intentional, and it's really about surrendering to an experience and a culture. And it's about really taking on a different way of life. I find that there are several different types of people who are looking to live abroad, and I'll really rein it into Black American people, especially with, the events of last summer and people really wanting to make a Blaxit. And there are some people who, in my opinion, fight me, who are looking for a place. They're looking to leave out of fear and out of exhaustion, which I completely understand. But the ways in which they're going about it leads me to conclude that they're looking for a place in which they can subjugate somebody else as like how they've been subjugated. Why do I say that? I say that because the language that people use when they're talking about living abroad sometimes, they use words like, I'm looking for, like, all they will post is like, I'm just looking for a cheap place to live, which, I mean, as we've talked about before, cheap, economical, affordable, these are all relative terms. So when someone says cheap, they're looking for cheap services, cheap products, cheap labor. And I have to wonder, why is that? Is it because of a budget or something like that? Or what is that? If you guys have watched, if you've been on my YouTube channel, I talked to Lisa Mitchell of Living a Global Lifestyle. We talked about financial wellness. If you have not checked out that video, you really need to, because if you're really trying to get yourself together for pre-departure, arrival, long-term stay, and repatriation financially, you need to watch that video for sure. But she said something that was really, really poignant. And she says, it gives her pause when people say they want to move somewhere just cheap. Nothing else, just cheap. Because she's like, people don't really understand and people don't explore further why it is so cheap for them to live there. And let's explore that. Like, why would it be cheap to live there? Perhaps you are living somewhere and you're not paying local taxes. That might be cheap to you because, again, people just say cheap. Perhaps, the cost of living someplace is substantially lower than where you're coming from in the United States. But also recognize that, yes, the cost of living may be lower, but the standard of living should still be something that is humane and good. So if you're moving someplace, you get house help and all this other stuff, and it's amazing, and I think it's awesome if you can do that. I think really examining how much these people are getting paid and their living conditions is really important. And as Black Americans, going someplace to subjugate other people is not really, in my opinion, trying to go, that's the antithesis of trying to find joy and freedom and liberation and ease. I think you can find those things and pay proper wages. I know people that do, who live abroad and have house help in quote unquote cheap places, and they have nannies and they have all these things, and they pay and they provide for these people, for these exchange of their services in a humane and dignified way. It's still cheaper than getting all this help in the United States, but it is, I think, really interesting. And I want us to think intentionally about moving abroad. I think especially as Black Americans, I'll say even more Black American women, it is important that in this liberation that you're looking for, that this liberation truly is complete and real liberation. How can it be real liberation if you're going somewhere and you're taking the same mentality of subjugation and you're putting it on to some other people? Like, doesn't make any sense to me. I know this is like a little bit of a different type of video. I know a lot of people just want to hear about, let's live abroad and it's fun and whatever. But I think it's really important to think about the ease and the joy that you are seeking, and how do you really want it to manifest in your life? What does living abroad truly mean to you? How is it to be intentional in this move abroad? I think that's why I harp so much on being intentional when you're living abroad. When you want to move abroad, it prevents you from moving abroad from fear, from a place of fear, making choices that are not really in alignment, not only with who you are, but the person that you want to be, the things that you want to be able to provide for yourself and your family. And I think that goes past materialistic kind of things. It's an ethos, it's a way of living. That's why I harp so much on being intentional, so that you are not disappointed. And that's so that you are actually open to a different way of life. If you are a Black American, you're American and you have a capitalist mentality about a lot of things. We've been sold very interesting stories about what can be possible, what can't be possible. And when you move abroad, you realize that a lot of things that we were told that are not possible are possible, healthcare being one. And I just think it's really important to understand that you still have a mentality that is capitalistic and exploitative, no matter how aware that you may be of that. It's important that you're intentional in your move, that you understand that. And so that when you come against some contrast, when you come against things that are different, you don't necessarily think that it's wrong because it's so different from the mentality in which that has burnt you out, right? It's not wrong that, oh my gosh, why is this taking so long? Or don't you want my money? And all these kinds of things that are really based in capitalist thinking and exploitative natures. We need to really check that before you go abroad, because that is going to shape the community that you surround yourself with and your experience. Not everywhere in the world shares the same values as the United States, period. And even though that might sound enticing to you in theory, in practice sometimes people feel very resistant to that. In theory, getting away from an American individualism, self-centric kind of way sounds fantastic. But in practice, it really requires us to really try to be in community and to really think from a holistic point of view. So I wanted to come on here and I wanted to say that because it's Juneteenth, and everybody and their mom is now celebrating Juneteenth. And I don't mean that by people, I mean like corporate entities, which I think is interesting and is a discussion for another day. But I wanted us to think about that as liberation, right? Like living abroad as liberation, because I've seen that theme a lot. And I feel like the conversation is, it's interesting, but I think it might be a little shallow at this point. And I'm always interested in having maybe a deeper discussion with people about that. I believe that living abroad can be a pathway to your own wellness, but I think you have to do a lot of introspection. You got to understand what baggage you're bringing into a different community, a culture, a country. And so the things that you are trying to quote unquote escape, you are not subconsciously bringing them in, because that is totally possible and happens. I was burnt out in the States. I brought the mentality of productivity, constant productivity to Spain, and was feeling burnt out again, because these things don't change just because you're in your geographic location changes. It doesn't change necessarily because you're in a different society. I wouldn't say that the Spanish society is similar really at all in values to American society, especially when it comes to productivity. That's no shade to Spanish culture. But it takes a lot more than just moving someplace. It really is important for you to understand, what is it that you're trying to get from a place? Or what are you trying to bring to a place? Or what are you really trying to become in this next chapter of your life? I know that sounds really weird. To some people, it's like, I just want to know, what visa do I need to get? How do I get a remote job? Should I bring my car? Can I bring my dog? All this other stuff. And I get that. But I'm going to push back to say that, I can create a checklist. I am creating a checklist. It's actually being available probably the end of this week. Well, this week. About all the things that you need to do for pre-departure to repatriation. But the thing is that for what I'm hearing is that people are looking for a lifestyle change. They're looking for a different experience in life. They're looking for a different experience in life. And if you're looking for a different experience in life, a checklist on all the things that you should bring and not bring, and spices and things like that, is not going to cut it. You really have to decide what is that you're looking for in this next chapter of your life. And you have to also understand that you're going to have to become a different person in this new chapter. That the things that you have been using to survive are not going to be the things that you're going to need to be using to thrive. And the things that were okay in status quo and, the States or your home country are not going to be the status quo or appropriate in this new community and country. And I just think that intentionality, awareness, and a deep knowing and visioning for yourself for what you want changes the game. I promise you, you will have a completely different experience if you kind of meditate on those things, and you will know which decisions are great for you. Instead of going to these Facebook groups, being like, I want someplace that is cheap, on a beach, and sunny. Where should I move? No, that's not it. It's important to understand, what is it that you're looking for? What kind of life are you looking to have? What are your core values? And what is it that you would like to bring your children, your future children, your family, whatever it is? What kind of environment would you like to bring them up in? What kind of community would you like to be an active participant in, and not just hiding with the expats, or in the expat bubble? What opportunities would you like to have or create for others? These things are so important. And that's why I really harp on wellness. That's why it's so important about wellness. What is your definition of wellness in your life right now? What is it? What does it mean to be well for you? What does financial wellness look like for you? Financial wellness doesn't necessarily always mean just how your bank accounts look, but also it looks like how you spend your money, and how you invest your time and resources and things like that. How do you sustain financially? Your emotional wellness and community and in partnership and things like that. What is it looking like right now? And what does it really mean? And how are you planning to embody that abroad? If you know what you are longing for, or what you know is right for you and is in alignment with you, then finding a place that fits the bill is much I think it's much easier because you know what you're looking for. Oddly enough, just trying to find a place that has sun and a beach is not enough. Because there's a lot of places with sun and a beach. Do you want a rocky pebble beach? You want a powdery sand beach? Like, there's a lot of things. You want a man-made beach? You want a natural beach? There's a lot of things. And even though I love living on the Mediterranean. Some of you guys know in Barcelona, my last apartment was right on the beach. It's great. I can tell you that even though that's nice, that isn't the deal breaker, right? I think it's so much more. For me, I'll say that in this chapter in my life, the reason why I wanted to go abroad was that I understood, for me, I knew that there were different ways to live life. And I knew that being burnt out and being this kind of hyper productive person was creating a lot of like health issues for me. I also was just a curious person. I wasn't ready to settle down into the mainstream societal kind of thing that was going on. I'm from the South, so the like adult timeline on what you should do and when you should get married is like quite short. And I was like, I'm not ready for this, and I don't want to do this. You know, I wanted to live in a place in which I could visit so many different places, have access. I wanted to be somewhere specifically where I had the sea and the mountains. That's been a big thing for me. I live in Barcelona. I have both. I wanted to be able to hike, and I wanted to be able to be active, and I just wanted to live a life a little bit like just more ease. And now that I have been abroad for 4 years now, I know that the things that I want now are even more refined. And what I find is that what I believe is joy and liberation and peace and ease, I have even more clear ideas about what that is. And I want to pursue that. And for me, it really is about definitely not causing more harm, and definitely trying to travel and to live in a place in which I'm not trying to like live a way that is so, I don't know. I don't want to subjugate other people. I feel uncomfortable with that. I don't feel like I want to, live like a queen if it means that people who are providing services for me are living like off of crumbs. Doesn't feel good for me. And I think that this Juneteenth, that's just what came into my heart. I wanted to talk about it. I don't think that a lot of people talk about that in the living abroad space, if that's a thing. And I just am here to bring different perspectives to it. I want us to be free. I want us to experience radical joy, radical ease. I want us to really rest. I think it's so important as a people, especially as Black Americans, especially as Black American women. I think it's so important to embrace ease and to really understand what that means. And I think that we can embrace joy and ease and life and love. And I don't think it has to be at the expense of other people. So that is my Juneteenth message. It's very spontaneous. Don't know if I made any sense. Rambled a little bit. Yeah. Let me know if you enjoyed that, if you're watching on a replay or whatever questions you may have about living abroad, put in the comments below. I am going to go live again, I'm definitely going live tomorrow for a collab that I'm doing. And then I'll probably go live again after that and answer some questions about living in Spain, because I get a lot of questions about that. So that one will be a different kind of vibe, but I wanted to do this one for today. All right. I hope that all of you are well. I hope that you guys are enjoying your weekend. And if you have not checked out the last episode of Flourish in the Foreign, go ahead and do that. www.flourishintheforeign.com, and let me know what you think. All right. Talk to you soon.